Welcome, everybody who is joining us. Tonight, we're going to be discussing topics from my book, Fashion Stylist: 7 Proven Steps to Build a Banging Portfolio, a Powerful Network, and Make Shit Happen. And each week, I'm inviting brilliant guests to expand on topics from my book. And tonight, I am so excited to be joined with one of my closest friends and probably one of the most talented people I know, the artist KARIS. Welcome, KARIS.
Hello, hi guys, hi everybody, how's it going? Thank you for the introduction, Christine.
Oh,
Honoured,
it's all
absolutely
true.
honoured.
It's all true. So, in my book, there's a huge chunk of it called the 7 proven steps to build a banging portfolio. And step number 1 is that is actually to get inspired, which sounds really simple, but it's so important for any creative to be able to get inspired. When it comes to styling, I mean, of course, aspiring stylists, they're going to be looking at contemporary fashion, they're going to be looking at fashion history, but also they really need to be looking at like art, architecture, cultural references, and music is a big part of that because music and fashion really go hand in hand. And for you, you're one of the people that I know that can bring all of those references together because, I mean, your work as an artist, you're painting, you're drawing, you're producing music, you're DJing internationally at some of the biggest clubs, and then you're also modeling. So you're really working across so many different cultural genres, and your own music and your personal style is very eclectic. It mixes genres and styles and cultural references. So my first question to you tonight is, how do you get inspired and how do you channel these references into your work, both musically and stylistically?
I would say the crux of it is that as a person, I'm a bit of a theatre kid. I love expression. Place me in any environment and I'll find something in those environments which I will gravitate towards. And I would encourage anybody to always place themselves into situations where they may feel uncomfortable, because you will find things in those situations where your mind will be expanded. Even when I'm DJing, and I'm DJing in these like really elaborate, gorgeous sort of members clubs, I'm like, okay, well, what would be what would I want to look like? Well, who's the person, maybe it's masking all my sort of neurodivergence, but I'm like, oh, well, I'd love to look like, somebody who went to Studio 54, or, and that's where I pull cultural references and place myself in this mindset, if that makes any sense. And then obviously I'm somebody who is a part of culture, whether that's my working class roots and creative roots as well, because then you're part of it. So it's like, me growing up on Drummond Street, I grew up with Hinduism and curry and that being around me from when I was really, really young. And in a way, I kind of bring bits of it sometimes through what I wear or whatever. So I think naturally as a person, being, London born and raised, we're in a very cultural hub. Pick bits that I just really love and I enjoy, and I see it as a sort of celebration, if anything. So I think that's kind of how I bring it into what I do. It's just it naturally comes from my love of theatre and wanting a gorgeous space to perform, and what would that person look like and whatever,
So when you show up to DJ for your gigs, you're showing up as the person that you want to be in that club on the dance floor. I love that.
Yeah, I think there's an element of that with everybody. I think it'd be incorrect for anybody, even DJs, to sit there and say, oh no, I don't do that or whatever. Listen, there are DJs out there that are doing things that make them iconic, and that, whether that's always wearing glasses on stage because maybe they're a bit shy, or you've got Charlie XCX doing her Brat era stuff. There were certain things that she was doing where it was like that are now sort of almost like iconic to the Brat era, whether that's her wearing shades and it's like apathetic, whatever, and what she was wearing. So I think everyone does it, even if you are somebody who is, oh, I'm just a DJ, oh, it's nothing, it's just how I am. Yeah, but you're a product of your culture and you're a product of your surroundings, So I think I think everyone does it on some level, whether you're artist or creative, so engaging in the culture around them through what they're wearing.
I love that. And some of my favorite ways to get inspired is actually, watching when you were talking about theatre. Like, I love watching a costume drama like Bridgerton, and
Yeah,
you'll see those references being brought into my work.
yeah,
And I always try to feed myself creatively. So if I'm in London and I'm popping in to meet a friend for a coffee or something, I always go a bit earlier so I can go to the gallery or I can go to a boutique and I can just absorb, even if it's only 5 minutes of something new. I really build that into my day. And you
yeah.
are someone I know that is such a culture vulture, and you're always referencing a multitude of angles and bringing it into your work. I love that you DJ'd at that on that Pullman train, the new cocktail lounge that was designed by Baz Luhrmann
Yeah,
and Catherine Martin,
yeah.
and you showed up in full 1930s glam, and you
Oh,
kind of
yeah,
worked
absolutely.
within the surroundings. And then when you had your residency at Annabel's pop-up in Saudi Arabia, you brought all of the Saudi influences into your wardrobe. So for somebody who wants to be that culture vulture and bring those references into their own wardrobe, like, what tips would you give them to bring researching for culture into their everyday life? Like, what can they do every day, and how can they infuse those references into their wardrobe but still remain authentic to their own style?
Find what you like, know who you are, and don't be afraid of your interests. So if you are somebody who's like, actually, that's quite interesting, lean into it. Even if you might think at the time, oh, that's not cool, you don't know that actually that might be the very thing, that might be the very edge that you bring to your wardrobe that engages. If you're styling somebody, you're trying to find some sort of personal style, that might be the thing that actually gives you the edge, that makes you feel like, oh, this is my own. And I think a lot of style, I think, really sort of comes from confidence, but also engaging in culture in general. Like, even with that Pullman's train, I instantly thought of the Marlene Dietrich film, which is the Shanghai Express. And because obviously I've got long blonde hair, I was like, oh, I just want to look like 1939 Veronica Lake. And that is my silver screen, me leaning into that KIBB concept of finding your lines. I know that 1930s, 1940s sort of cuts really suit me. Whereas 1920s, because I'm not flat chested and I'm not tall, particularly very tall, I know that sometimes it cuts me in like weird places and it makes me look really frumpy. So I was like, please, can I just lean into sort of slightly later, like 1930s, with the like really strong shoulder pads? And by doing that, it's like I'm still honoring the space, doing it in my twist. But also, I wanted to bring a Veronica Lake theatre aspect of like, oh God, I'd love to be her. Why not take the opportunity to dress like that? And I
Yeah.
think with them, Saudi Arabia, when you're going to a place with it where you don't know the culture is so different from yours, and because I had to be quite covered up as well, out of respect, I was like, okay, well, I'm going to sit on Pinterest and I'm going to look at images of, Bedouin women and women in these spaces that I were like, that's a really cool shoot. And I found like some of the most incredible photographs of women in the Middle East and what they dress and look like. And, you know, seeing these images made me look at the culture in a different way, actually. Yeah, they may be completely covered, but underneath they're wearing like the most glamorous, gorgeous, ornate dresses and everything. So yes, it's different, but actually, you know what, I lent into it and found myself really excited that I had this opportunity to really lean in the culture and find something that I bought this black and gold abaya, and I'd never bought an abaya before. And I asked this girl on Etsy, I was like, well, what type of size do I get? I've never bought one before. She helped me, bought it, it was gorgeous. And when I arrived wearing it in Saudi, because it's black and gold, they were so appreciative of me wearing it. They were like, they saw it as like a mark of respect. And when I performed in it, and I had like this silver metal sort of chain over across my nose to sort of cover my face. So many people say such lovely things, you know, whether it's the royalty that attended that night, or people just being like, oh, it's really exciting. I had people even asking, are you sure you're not Saudi? And I was like, no, you know, I'm a girl from Britain, you know, I have an Irish background, but people were really loving the fact that I was engaging with the culture. And it isn't in a sense of cultural appropriation either, because it's not like I'm going around and going, oh yeah, well it's this, that and the other. Like, I'm very respectful and I want to understand the culture that I'm involved in and make sure that it's done correctly. And I think when you do that and you have that engagement with culture, people really resonate with that. And I think that's sometimes lost since, you know, since with everyone being quite scared of cultural appropriation. But I think, going back to your question, sorry, because I'm going off on a tangent, but we're trying to engage it in your everyday life, or trying to engage with, trying to find references or whatever. I think, you know, searching on Pinterest, attending any sort of art gallery, you know, going to the cinema, you know, even recently going to see Michael, I've come away going, I want to look at all of what Michael used to wear on stage, and didn't realize that actually he was always wearing a bit of glitter, and he was always wearing something really sparkly, and that everything that he did was so it could be seen from far away, you know, whether it is things on his fingers, or, you know, the fact that he had one glass,
the white socks for the shoes.
Yeah, and that becomes an iconic thing. I think.
So speaking of icons, I think we need to stay on this topic of icons, because you worked with a lot of global icons. You've been requested to DJ the after parties for Beyoncé, Drake, Kate Moss, then also Vogue, Burberry, and the BAFTAs. So I talk about this a lot throughout the book, that you need to, you know, if you're working as a stylist, particularly a celebrity stylist, you need to get used to working with really big personalities.
Yeah,
and showing up, like learning how to navigate those rooms, showing up, leaving your ego at the door, but handling everything professionally, because you are there to do a job. And you're someone who's constantly surrounded by very public people. And you're probably one of the most down-to-earth people I know. So how do you stay grounded when you have big jobs with big superstar names attached? And do you have any wellness tips that help to keep you confident and creative?
I would say, when you're engaging with anybody, engage with people as they are, as people. Sometimes I think when you first start in spaces, it can be overwhelming, you know. And I think just always make sure that you always go in doing a good job and you're being lovely and sweet to everybody. And I think that's the most important thing, is it's about your attitude, about how you always go into whatever you do. As long as you think, I've done the best that I can do, and I've been lovely and sweet, and, you know, I'm coming with a pure heart, even as emo as that sounds, I think you end up finding people resonate with that. My career has sort of snowballed, and I've never had to chase it too much, weirdly. I've kind of been somebody who started very small, as you know, and it just sort of grew gradually over time. And I think as well, understanding that it's a journey, that you're not going to be maybe straight in those rooms straight away, but that's not to say that you won't grow and get there eventually as well. And I think understanding that, and understanding that you will, you know, you'll always come into contact with people that, you know, could be stars and might be really like a bit pissy, or there might be some people that are really lovely and they'll engage with you. And I think just understanding that as long as you go in there with a pure heart and a pure mind, and you love what you do, that energy resonates, and that you can carry that throughout any creative career, I think.
I totally agree. So you mentioned going back to the start, and I'm going to go back to the start for when we were hanging out like many years ago. So throughout my book, Fashion Stylist, I really encourage aspiring fashion stylists to start networking and collaborating with other creatives. outside of the field of fashion, because this is what's going to build your portfolio. It's going to expand your network, and it's going to open the doors to jobs. And in my book, I actually write about you because I talk about one of my early shoots with my friend who was an up and coming DJ, and I was an up and coming stylist. And like I did some of my first shoots with you, KARIS.
Yeah.
And like we had no luxury clothes, like no showrooms were lending me expensive fancy clothes. Like I raided your wardrobe, I took clothes from my wardrobe, and our friend Paul shot images of you in my living room because it was like the only room with a white wall. And that's what we did. And like the images were so amazing that we got. And I remember them so well. And I know there's a lot of stylists out there who really love music and would like to cross over between the worlds of music and fashion. So what advice would you give to any up and coming stylists to be able to go out there today and start collaborating with people in the music industry?
Just ask them. Just approach them. Just say, you know what, I'd love to do a shoot with you. Do you need some promo shots? Or, you know, find a photographer, find anybody that's got a camera and just say, I like your style. Or even people that you may not even like their style, but you might think they need a bit of help with styling. You know, just ask them, hey, I'd love to just do this. Are you up for it? And you know what? I think when you're at the beginning of things, people are so much more, I guess, malleable and easier to approach. Obviously, I think I'd love to style that big star. It gets a little bit obviously complicated, but also don't allow that to be something that prevents you from just asking. You know, just ask them. You know, there might be people that you may think are like on this pedestal and way up there. They may have a few thousand followers, whatever, but actually you approach them and they're like, yeah, actually I do need that, and I'm really intrigued. What ideas have you got for me? And I think allowing yourself to sort of reach and just ask sometimes can open some doors, you know. And also, if someone doesn't get back to you, I think you've got to just sort of take it on the chin a little bit, but also try not to allow that sort of rejection sensitivity, which is, as somebody who's neurodivergent, is, you know, can be a big thing. You can feel a bit like, oh God, I shouldn't have done that, or whatever, but don't feel too scared, and just to allow the universe to sort of open up as is. Because maybe you ask that person, hey, do you ever fancy doing some shoots? I think there's some styling bits, and I think you've got this great face, and I'd love to do some bits with you. And they're like, you know what, actually, maybe not for me, but I know somebody else, you know. And I think understanding that growth comes through your relationships, in whether you're in music or fashion or styling, it grows like that, you know. So I think even for us, from when we first started, we were first friends, you know, we were just kids just mucking around, and look at where we are now, you know, and what we've done. And
I think that's it. The bottom line is be brave and ask. Just ask. Where can people see you play next, and where can people follow you on social media and tell us what you're up to?
You can find me at KARIS O'Hara, all one word, on pretty much everything. I'm currently playing at 45 Park Lane, but also this members place in Notting Hill called Celeste, which I love because I get to take my records and play sort of disco and UK boogie and all that sort of stuff, and I love doing my vinyl sets. So those are my sort of gigs at the moment, but obviously the summer is not started that much yet.
I'm sure we'll see you at a few festivals.
So yeah, exactly. So we'll see what happens over the summer, I guess.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for joining us tonight. I've loved everything that you've been saying about combining cultural references and styling and music and fashion. It's been so amazing. Thank you, KARIS.
No worries. Thank you so much for having me.
We've been collaborating for nearly 20 years, so you had to be on alive. Absolutely. And for anyone who wants to pick up a copy of Fashion Stylist, head to the link in my bio and all the details are there.